Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this video, I'm going to do a review of the Mortlach 16-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. Now, I already did a review of the 12-year-old, so I'm going to do a head-to-head comparison between the 16 and 12-year-old, because what I said about the 12-year-old was I wanted something a little bit more in the mid-palate, which I thought would come about with a little more ABV. These have the same ABV. So let's find out if what I'm looking for is that a little bit more in the Mortlach is in the 16 with more age rather than more ABV. But before we get into this, I'm going to tell you about the profile of Mortlach Distillery. Mortlach is a Speyside distillery located in Dufftown, Moray, Scotland. I can find no reference to the meaning of Mortlach in Gaelic or English on the internet or in the whiskey books. However, according to a Japanese anime, Nanatsu no Taizai Wiki, Mortlach was a holy knight who served King Arthur. Locally, the distillery is known as the Beast of Dufftown. Mortlach Distillery was established in 1823 by James Findlater in the wake of the Excise Act on the site of an older illicit distillery. Mortlach was the first legal distillery in Dufftown. In 1997, Mortlach Distillery was bought by Diageo. Mortlach's production. Their water source is the Dyke Head and Catscraig Springs in the Conval Hills. They have a 12-ton full lauter mash tun, and the fermentation time is 53 hours minimum. They have 6 Douglas fir wood washbacks, 6 stills, that is 3 wash stills and 3 spirit stills. The wash from clearwort and long fermentation is split between the 3 wash stills. The number 3 wash still and the number 3 spirit still work in tandem as per normal. The low wines from the wash stills number 1 and 2 is, however, split into 2 parts. The first 80% of the run is collected as the charge for spirit still number 2. The remaining 20%, called weak feints, forms the charge for spirit number 1, otherwise known as the wee witchy. This distills the weak feints 3 times with only the heart of the final run being collected. It all adds up to the new make spirit having been distilled 2.81 times. And Mortlach uses worm tub condensers. The Mortlach Core Range. Currently, the Mortlach Core Range is made up of the 12, 16, and 20-year-old Highland Single Malt Scotch Whiskies. The Mortlach 12 Wee Witchy Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, aged in ex-bourbon cask and ex-sherry cask, is bottled at 43.4% alcohol by volume. The Mortlach 16-year-old Distiller's Dram Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, aged in 100% ex-sherry cask, bottled at 43.4% alcohol by volume. And the Mortlach 20-year-old Cowie's Blue Seal Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, aged in 100% sherry cask, bottled at 43.4% alcohol by volume. So, the only thing really different between the 12-year-old and the 16-year-old is more time in terms of the whiskey. In terms of buying it, it's $50 more, at least in my neighborhood. So you can get the 12-year-old in my neighborhood for about $55 and the 16-year-old for about $105. A little bit more and it would be basically twice the price. So what I want to know is the 16-year-old worth that extra $50 to get 2 more years? Because other than that, the general profile in terms of production, the cask and so forth is basically the same. It's just more age. Now, I really like the 12. It pretty much, I would say, defies the stereotype of the region of Speyside. Speyside's supposed to be light and fruity. These whiskeys are darker, earthier. Some describe it as a meteor. Not meteor like falling out of the sky from outer space, but meaty. As more of a meaty characteristic to them. So on the 12-year-old, as I mentioned in the previous video, fresh fruit and dried stone fruit, particularly apricots. Slight earthy character. If you're doing it blind, you might think there was just a little bit of peat, but it's not. Hints of chocolate, spice, orange, lemon, vanilla. The 16-year-old, wow. It is darker, richer. That earthy character of the 12-year-old, I think, has transitioned into a Tootsie Roll chocolate. The apricot and orange character isn't as prominent. The meteor, not meteor, like satellite thing falling out of the sky, meaty character of the whiskey is more prominent. It's earthier, it's chocolater, more chocolate notes, or Tootsie Roll, more spice. But there is in the background that orange character. In fact, it's changed a little bit. This is, the 12-year-old is more apricot. I think the 16-year-old is more orange. In fact, it reminds me of an orange Tootsie Pop. I don't know if they still, I don't eat candy, but they still make them. But it was an orange Tootsie Pop where there's orange candy on the outside, and when you lick your way through a Tootsie Roll, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll, center of a Tootsie Pop?
Mr. Turtle, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
I never made it without biting. Ask Mr. Owl.
Mr. Owl, how many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
Let's find out. 1, 2, 3, 3.
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? The world may never know.
I don't know. Go ask Mr. Owl. That's an old commercial we used to see when I was a kid. And then you find out that at the center of the Tootsie Pop is that chocolatey character. And that's what I get on the 16-year-old. Real nice spice, vanilla. It's darker, more concentrated, more intense. This is, relatively speaking, the 12-year-old is slightly lighter and fruitier, but it still has that earthy character in the center of it. 12-year-old on the palate. Nose is confirmed. Orange and apricots up front, going to an earthy core at the center of it. A little bit of chocolate, spice, and it has sort of a richness to it on the finish. The 16-year-old, It also has a real nice sweetness. That chocolate Tootsie Roll character kicks in right in the mid palate. And it has this depth and richness to it. A whiskey doesn't have to have real high ABV to deliver a lot of flavor. You need good casks and you need time in the cask. And so that's what we got going on here. And of course, good stills and good barley and everything else that goes into production. But in terms of the maturation of the whiskey, if you have quality casks and good time spent in the cask, you get the flavors without necessarily having to have a super high ABV. I like the transitions. Sweet up front, going darker, earthier, more chocolate. Not quite savory, but it's heading in that direction. Like the 12-year-old, if you're tasting a blind, that earthy core to it, you might think that could be an influence from peat. Because in a lot of whiskeys, a lot of peated whiskeys, you can get that chocolatey character to it. It has a medium plus length finish. It has a longer finish than the 12-year-old. I'm not drinking any water in between them, so I got to give a little extra time before I take the next sip. What I wanted to do is compare the texture. The 16-year-old is silkier. smoother. Not quite creamy, but it has a nice glossy mouthfeel. Both of these have a decent amount of weight and mouth coating feel for the ABV, but you can tell the 16-year-old is richer, silkier, and has more mouthfeel to it, particularly in the center palate and the center of the palate, and a good lung finish. The biggest difference between the 12-year-old and the 16-year-old is they both have similar entry, but it's in that mid palate that they really show the differences, which only comes from age. And it's that the 16-year-old is richer, has more chocolate, and texture-wise, it's slightly silkier in the palate. So I gave the 12-year-old like 98, 99 points, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm going to take the 16-year-old up to like 91, 92 in that range. It's a better whiskey than the 12-year-old, hands down. Really, really, really nice. The challenge, though, is, or the question is it worth an extra $50? I'm going to say, in other words, throw in another $5 and I can get 2 of these versus just 1 of these. Just add $5, more bucks, give or take, and I can get 2 of these. You know what? I would rather throw in another $5 and get 2 of these than just 1 of these. But if they were the same price, or if you could choose just one or the other, someone's going to give you a bottle, definitely, hands down, I would take the 16-year-old. In fact, this has the possibility of being in my top 10 for 2024. This is an absolutely superb whiskey. I really, really like Mortlach. I've not seen any of the older ones around in the neighborhood, and undoubtedly, if I could find one, they would probably be super expensive. But these are absolutely killer whiskeys. If you've not had the Mortlach 12-year-old, I want to highly recommend it. If you have tried the Mortlach 12 and the 16-year-old, let me know what you think in the comments section down below. I've heard a lot of people rave about the 16-year-old back in the day. You know, back in my day, they used to make them a lot better. You know, these people have been in the whiskey a lot longer than I have. You're going to hear that kind of a thing. Granted, great. I'm glad Mortlach 16-year-old back in the 80s was better than it is today, but I don't have that, can't get that, so I don't want to hear about it. But that being said, the Mortlach 16 is absolutely fantastic. All right, that's it for this video. I want to thank you very much for watching. If you've not yet subscribed, and actually subscribe, ring the bell to be notified when I go live or post a new video. And until next time, Slanja. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.